My favourite moment, to be fair, it was a great film, there are lots to choose from, but I think it has to be that moment when Captain America goes into the lift in the old Avengers tower and he's standing there, and it's that sort of shot recreated to be like the lift scene in Winter Soldier when he like kicks loads of ass, and Crossbones is in the lift with him, isn't he? And it looks like it's going to set up to be that fight again. And then Captain America's clearly just one step ahead of the game and just leans into all the people who he knows are working for Hydra and just goes, "Hail Hydra." And I've always wanted to see that, because obviously there was a massive controversy when he said "Hail Hydra" in the comics 2-3 years ago, was it? Last year? 2 years ago. So seeing that kind of referenced and payoff with that scene was fantastic. But the reason I brought this on my thumb is because there's another thing that I really liked, and that is Ant-Man growing really big and just going, "Take that, you flipping tin pot Skrulls." Yeah. Smash.
You know what would have been really good? If we got to see what happened in the lift after he got out. Like, did you know about that?
Captain America knows about Hydra.
Crossbones is there like, so, well, guess he's part of the club now.
Who let him in?
Yeah, guess we'll let any old riff-raff in.
My favourite moment in Avengers Endgame was, it was a journey for me of about 3 seconds, because at first I saw this moment and thought, bit cynical, that bit back patty, a bit, oh look at us. But then I had some time to reflect on it and thought, actually, you know what, that's actually really good. And it's the bit where I think it's Captain Marvel, I've not slept for 28 hours, I think it's Captain Marvel, picks up the gauntlet and Spider-Man goes, "Don't fancy your chances there very much. Lot of bad guys between point A and point B." And she goes, "I'll be fine, sure. I've got all my pals." And literally every single lass in the MCU just appears at the same place at the same time, and they all decide, they're gonna fix it all. They'll all do it together. And I was like, you know what? That's them responding to all the stuff about you haven't really given the female characters much agency over the last 11 years. Sure, some of them have been good, they've had nice moments, but you've not really done enough there. And that's them going, well, no, there's loads of them now. Like, these ones, they're all really good, and they're all, we put, you know, the name wasn't on the poster, and then we did it, you see, because we listen. And it felt a bit like, go us. And I was like, it's a bit cynical, that. But I thought, hang on, there's gonna be loads of really weird men in cinemas across the world going like, why is there all those women there? Why are they all in this thing? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm being erased from history. And I was like, actually, that's really gonna annoy people, so I really liked it. Also, the bit with Thanos headbutting Captain Marvel and she just completely noticing it. Women's skulls aren't that strong. What is this? Mary Sue.
I can only say one, and it's because it involves my boy Steve finally delivering the moment that was teased in Avengers Age of Ultron, you know, and they're all having a bit of the contest with the Mjolnir. Yep. Everyone's trying to lift it up and swinging, and good old Steve Rogers goes and nudges it, and then Thor's just there like, and at that point in the franchise, Thor's not really come into his own yet. He's still kind of underneath Odin. He's not very responsible. He's not the ruler of Asgard that we see at the end of Ragnarok. And in the final confrontation with Thanos in Endgame, obviously you've all seen it, blah, 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 he brings back Mjolnir from Thor the Dark World. So he has Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, and he's like, I've got two hammers. It's kind of like Moe in The Simpsons when he has two knives. Yeah. He's like, I gotta tell you, this is great. And he's just like that. Thanos disarms Thor, and Mjolnir's just there. And then we see it shaking a little bit, kind of like when the lightsaber in The Force Awakens is like, you know, and then it goes whoosh, and Cap has it, and Thor's there like, I knew it! And it's like, that's just the kind of love and support that you want in life. Your best friend is like, I don't need that puny little pathetic hammer anymore, you can have it, Earthling. And then Cap is there spinning the hammer around like he does in the comics, and it was just the most amazing, just purely unadulterated, just pure comic book spectacle I've ever seen in a comic movie, and it made me so happy.
So I'm a sadist, and I'm grumpy and old and very tired of life. Like Tony Stark, in fact. Segue.
Nice.
And my favourite moment was the end of Endgame when Tony Stark pegs it.
Why?
Because it's the most emotionally true moment in the entire franchise. See, he's very sensible. I had three. I had the first one when he was like knacked, and it was obvious he was going to die. Peter Parker comes in, they have their moment. I can't remember the second one. It's very closely after that. Or when he dies, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the third one is when Happy is with Morgan and she says cheeseburgers, and he says, "Your dad likes cheeseburgers."
I mean, statistically, a lot of people like
I was gonna say
I know
that.
everyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's when he says, "I'll get you all the cheeseburgers."
yes.
That
it
was
is.
your problem, Happy. Don't make it hers as well.
Yeah. Don't give her an E.
Me, no fattest jokes, please.
So,
It properly got us. The best thing about it, and the best thing about any film like that, when it makes somebody cry, is the entire audience were pretending that they weren't crying, and that really adds to it for me.
I have to put a lovely big spotlight on the best character in Endgame, my brethren, my hairy brother from another mother, and that's Rocket, who I also played in the What Culture Endgame poster. And it's honestly one of the first jokes in the film, and it's when Tony Stark is in a bit of a state. He's like throwing shade at everybody in the room, and he turns around to Rocket and says, "I honestly thought you were a Build-A-Bear." I've never been so connected to a joke in my life, because yeah, I'm basically a Build-A-Bear. Sort of to echo Sai a little bit, towards the end of the film, everyone's back, it's all great, and we are waiting for the moment that Tony Stark and Peter Parker lock eyes once again. And at this point, you know, we're all concerned something's happened. There's a point where Cap is alone on the battlefield, and you think, okay, this is where he's going to kick the bucket. So everyone's at this point that everyone's like right on edge, but thinking something really bad's going to happen. And the next big emotional thing that happens is Peter comes face to face with Tony, and he's like, oh, Mr. Stark. And Tony just goes in for the hug, and that was the point. And I just sort of went, and that was it. I was gone.
Well, there are so many. The fact that they kind of went down this whole like Lord of the Ringsy epic 3-hour long saga type jazz. I just think that they kind of drew up a whole list of like just how many things can we do, how many different moments and movies and characters can we sort of pay tribute to across the last 11 years. And so the whole thing is this big old just a fun ride. I just was completely lost in pretty much every second of it. But the first bit that made me just pop me completely rotten was the bit where they just go after Thanos, just track him down, and you've got Captain Marvel has the dude in a headlock, back and forth, whatever it is, and Thanos has, he tries to do his little monologue and stuff, tries to talk back, and Thanos just cuts his head off. He doesn't care, does he? At this point, I was quite surprised how much blood they included as well. But especially when like new Thanos watches the footage back, and he's just watching the spurts, and I was like, we're in like a PG thing.
Kill Bill.
Yeah, it's Kill Bill with like the wounds. The dude that Hawkeye killed had like spurts as well, spurts galore. But yeah, it would be that bit. It's the bit when he just comes in, and obviously one of the major criticisms, or I don't know, fan theories, whatever you want to call it, talking points coming out of Endgame, Infinity War, sorry, was why didn't he just bury the hat? Why did he bury the blade more? Why didn't he just go over the head? And so I love that they addressed that immediately, and just the speed of it is ridiculous. And I forget who actually says to him in the aftermath of that, because it's so quick, and you're like, did they just do that? I forget who says to him, like, what have you done? And he just goes, I went for the head. And I was just like, just the fact that you were opening with that. And it made me realize that like all the trailers and adverts and stuff, I mean, I only watched like the main 3. Vast majority of all that stuff, all those things get out the way in the first, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was that feeling of the same in Mad Max, where it was like, wherever they're going to go from here, I have no idea. And I love that feeling, because so many movies get ruined. And they did include a few scenes from later in the movie and stuff, but just beheading the dude that you're supposed to fight at the end, just do that.
Avengers Endgame has so many good moments, and all the ones that I probably would have instantly gone for, like Lady Avengers and the hammer on Captain America, what was all they've been spoken about, which are fantastic. So I'm gonna go for a couple of the smaller moments, and one of those is just a really nice little throwback to Guardians of the Galaxy, which is one of my favourites, if not my favourite, other than the big 2 that we've had recently from the whole MCU, where Quill is running around singing into his rats when he's going on Morag, ready to collect the Infinity Stone, and we see it from the other side instead, so it throws back to that movie, and then we see it with Nebula and what's his face, Robo-Man.
The Falcon.
It's been a long night.
War Machine.
War Machine.
God, I was wrong. No, 4 hours. It's been a really long night.
Yeah, with Nebula and War Machine watching him, and there's no soundtrack, and you can just hear him going, "Oh!" into like these rats and stuff. It just absolutely just got me. It was such a small little thing that I was like, good, yes, thank you for that. I needed to know what this actually sounded like. And another thing that I have to point out that absolutely, as Scott would put it, popped me rotten was the bit in the main fight where Thor comes out. Lovely, lovely Thor, who I am now grottily in love with from this film, comes out and gets all lightning ready, sees all the battling, is ready for it, puts on his armor, gets badass Thored up, and a piece of lightning strikes him and his beard just plats instantly. I just loved it so much. Oh, but it was great. This whole film is just a gift. Like, it's just a gift of banter moment after banter moment, like laced with all these other horribly emotionally crippling things inside it. And I don't know how to feel about any of it. It's just good. It's just good.
It is the very final moment of Avengers Endgame. The final scene with Steve and Peggy and their little dance in the house. And I suppose it's kind of cheating because it's even more powerful considering what happens prior when it's like old Steve and he's handing down the Captain America mantle. And there's that awesome quote where I think it's Sam asks him about like what he's been up to and who this woman is that he's been with.
Tell me about her.
Yeah, do you want to tell me about her? And he goes, nah, that's between like me and Peggy. And then it flashes like back and there's this really tender, intimate moment between the two, just like swaying and that tune's on in the background and it's silent and it's just between these two people. Like it is like just a romance for them. Like the whole world doesn't have to know. They get to live this life that isn't in like the public eye, isn't surrounded by all of this stuff that has been going on for the past 11 years in Captain America's life, and it's just so tender and human. It's so great to see a superhero film of this scale and of this magnitude just finish on such a like a tender human note. Like there's no superheroics in that scene. It's just very personal and emotional, and it's the perfect send-off for Cap, in my opinion.
Oh God, I'm tearing up. Like, thinking about it, hearing it being described again. This Peggy's like the water in her eye.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. He deserved it. He really deserved
What
it.
bit when he goes back to her office and he sees her again for the first time?
Oh
That
my,
got me as well.
that got.
I was like,
yeah.
go to her. Knock on the window.
But then he
She
does.
don't realise he's there though. To be honest.
And I love that you can sort of see it coming. When he steps in that time travel machine, you're like, he's not coming back. And then when you look over and you see old Cap, and it's just, it's everyone's happy for him. I love how Bucky and Sam are just so on board. And they're just like, yeah, you made the right decision. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. And I'm so proud. I'm so happy of him.